you think if I had a friend in Kevin, the Calcutta General, he would look favorably if a Singaporean is actually retired? It's one of those things on my vision board. Buy a house somewhere in Melbourne. Right between streets of Maybe. Thank you. You guys are okay. Because actually there's a quote I love it, and it's a quote because we treat the women so they closed down foreigners buying there. We couldn't stop the Singaporean. I'm coming to it. I'm trying to come for Thunder Warriors. Yeah. Yeah, right. Let's go to one. I feel that's it. It's actually also that's right. Yeah. No, I honeymoon that way.
Meetings interspersed amongst the whole program. How would you get yourself together? Wellington Airport is from a rise in land. Even just again. It landed right out of water in the 1800s. I'm wondering if it's very recent.
I remember the lunch.
I know because during the pandemic, you couldn't travel.
Yeah.
So I just actually didn't think much about it, but it was actually a great getaway.
Nobody moved.
Because there's
actually, and then after it,
restaurants are all just really walking the floor.
it's not like 4 point something.
I snuck it out before the game was I had last night with
Must be.
strangers. You could spend like we spent 3 days there. Yeah.
Angry.
I can see your point on that. You can really talk. I know you can come out for 3 nights. I think about it. Everything's all right. There are many other alternatives. Affecting hotels in True. Sydney's great. Really on par with this. Even Melbourne, Canberra not so much. This makes sure that Sydney
So there's
when I was here in the West Coast last year, some of the Singaporeans on the course, those type of guys took us out to some of the Hawker Centre. What if they
Good morning, ministers, members of the media and representatives of the FPDA member nations. Welcome to the 12th FPDA Defense Ministers Meeting Joint Press Conference. To begin the press conference proceedings, the FPDA will take this opportunity to launch its official website. The website is a closely coordinated effort by the FPDA headquarters team and all 5 FPDA member nations. It is intended to create an authoritative source for the public to learn about the FPDA and its history. It is also aimed at increasing the transparency of the FPDA as a defensive, multilateral arrangement that will build trust and confidence in the region. We will now play a video to launch the FPDA website. Ladies and gentlemen, the website is now live and may be accessed at 5powerdefensearrangements.org. I'm sure many will find the website to be a useful resource. Okay, so now moving on to the press conference, we invite the representatives, ministers from the FPDA member nations for the joint press conference.
Ladies and gentlemen from the press, welcome to the FPDA press conference. I'm delighted to be able to host this with my co-host, Dato Sri Muhammad Khalid bin Nordin, Malaysian Defensive Minister, Deputy Prime Minister Miles, Minister Collins, as well as a representative from the UK, Director General Paul White. And Your Excellencies, who are also here, and Chief of Defence Forces. I'll just take the prerogative as host to say the briefest of remarks and then allow my co-panelists to pour forth. It's been a very successful 12th FPDA FDMM. I think we made significant progress. I myself am gratified that we came to an agreement on many areas, which subsequently my co-ministers will talk about. But I want to put on record that the FPDA, having launched this website, is alive and well, now 53 years old, a grandmother of multilateralism. if you can cast your mind back in 1971, many things didn't exist, but the FPDA was formed, and it still remains relevant today. We'll try to make it even more relevant for the future. It is reassuring for the government and the peoples of Malaysia and Singapore, and I think our neighbors. So with that, I will pass the mic over to Dr. Sri Muhammad Khalid.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ng. Again, I would like to thank Singapore and all member countries for making this meeting successful. What I can see from the meeting is that we witnessed the cohesion between member nations as we focus on the future direction of FPDA as our common purpose. The views, deliberation, and opinion provided during the meeting were all very valuable, reflecting our aspiration to make FPDA relevant and resilient to the shifting geopolitical landscape. I am convinced that FPDA will continue to live on. All of us are committed to work closely to address challenges through the continuous building of capacity, concerted responses, and efficient civilian-military rapport. In conclusion, I would like to say that and reaffirm Malaysia's commitment to FPDA and look forward to having the next FDMM meeting in Kuala Lumpur in 3 years' time. Thank you.
Deputy Prime Minister Miles.
Well, thank you, and can I begin by thanking Minister Ng and Minister Khalid for co-hosting today's meeting. It has been a very successful FPDA Defence Ministers meeting. In 2024, the world obviously looks very different to what it did in 1971, but what we have in this grouping of 5 countries is a high degree of trust, a high degree of friendship, a high degree of strategic alignment, and a deep desire to continue to work together. And the fact that we are in the construct of the FPDA feels as relevant today going forward as it ever has. And that is reflected in the discussions that we had today, which were centred on making sure that we build increasing ambition into the agenda of the FPDA. And you can see that in terms of the exercises that are being planned, exercises that are more complex, more broad, more deep. And we are really excited about that. This is a profoundly important minilateral for Australia. And I think if you were to ask all of the nations that are here, our national interests are all about contributing to the collective security of our region in a world which has a lot going on. And in doing that, clearly the cornerstone of collective security in this part of the world is ASEAN centrality. We all absolutely see that. But minilaterals can play their part, and this one certainly does, having been around for 53 years. And so as we work together, as we expand the scope of our exercises, we feel very much that in furthering our own national interests, what we are doing is making a really important contribution to the collective security of this region, and that remains at the centre of the mission of the FPDA.
Mr. Collins.
Well, thank you. It's a great pleasure to represent New Zealand at this 12th Five-Power Defence Arrangements Defence Ministers meeting. I believe that this is a very important part of our arrangements in the Indo-Pacific region, and as has been noted, the geopolitical situation in the world is not becoming less tense, but in fact more tense, and that it is important that wherever operable, particularly those of us who are smaller powers, that we are actually able to work interoperably with our ally and friends. And that is why we welcome the opportunity to contribute to and be part of the exercises that have been and are now planned. We believe very firmly that it is important that we work together, and whether it's in security situations, looking at new innovations as well, but also in humanitarian assistance, which we are becoming increasingly in need of providing, particularly in the Asia, Indo-Pacific region, and particularly the Pacific and our Pacific island nations who are our neighbours. So thank you for that opportunity. I'd like to thank Singapore and Professor and Dr. Ng, but also to thank Malaysia for co-hosting as well. It has been a very good meeting, or series of meetings this morning, and I feel that we've been able to gain quite a lot of insight.
Thank you. Director Wyatt.
So thank you very much. So as you've heard from others, it was a very positive meeting with a really strong spirit of partnership and cooperation that came through. The UK was pleased to be able to emphasise our continued firm commitment to the five-power defence arrangements and to the value that we believe they bring in the current security context. As you've heard, we reflected on the long history of the five-power defence arrangements, as well as talked of our shared ambition for the future. And in particular, we were able to support the FPDA blueprint for further exercises and activities, which provides a path for us thinking about modern challenges and the integration of modern capabilities. It was a positive engagement and gives us a real platform for continuing to work together for our collective security. And I should echo again the thanks that others have registered, both to our colleagues from Malaysia and from Singapore for their hosting of the meeting.
I'll deal with one specific point and then open up to the press for questions. And this was in regard to the meat of the FPDA, which is really our exercises, our military exercises. We call them Bersama Lima Shield or Bersama Lima main exercise. And we agreed as part of the stocktake and moving forward that to be relevant, two aspects, one conventional, and the agreement was to include more high-end war-fighting capabilities, conventional capabilities, and I'll leave my colleagues to elaborate. Secondly, in the area of non-conventional, I'll first ask Dr. Sri Muhammad Khalid to give his comments, and then DPM Miles. Dato'?
Yeah, on the non-conventional, we did discuss and deliberate on the need for us to build capabilities in areas such as counter-terrorism, maritime security, humanitarian, as well as disaster relief. So these will be the new areas that we will look into apart from the traditional threat. Thank you.
Thank you, Ang Hen. Perhaps to start there, I spoke earlier about a broadening of the way in which we are engaging in exercises, and non-conventional is a really important part of that. So thinking about non-traditional threats, counter-terrorism is part of what we are engaging in terms of the exercises that we're doing, maritime disaster relief, but also looking through areas such as cyber and drones. So there is a broadening of the exercises that we are doing. In the conventional space, though, we are increasing the assets that we are bringing to bear in exercises. At Bersama Lima later this year, for the first time, Australia will be contributing F-35 Joint Strike Fighters to that exercise, and that'll be the first time we'll have a fifth-generation aircraft participating in Bersama Lima. It's an example of what we are trying to do in terms of increasing the complexity of these exercises and the high-end nature of them. But actually it's entirely consistent with the history of FPDA. When you look right back to 1971 through to now, there has been an evolution, as you would expect, in the kind of exercises that have been undertaken with more complex assets being brought to bear. And this is an important example of how that continues. So we're really looking forward to this year's Basama Lehman and the participation of the Joint Strike Fighters in that. And we look forward to Basama Lehman's going forward to be even more high-end and more complex.
Mr. Collins.
Yes, thank you. So New Zealand is very happy to be part of the exercise Basama Lehman, and we will be contributing to that exercise, including the option of the first deployment of a P8A Poseidon to Singapore for that operation, and I think it will be a great opportunity for us to work together on this.
Just to repeat, because P8s is what Minister Collins said. Director Paul White.
So, like others, we discussed the opportunities that were kind of coming up into the future, and from a UK perspective, obviously you'll be aware we're already planning a carrier deployment into the region in 2025, Operation High Mast, and we were able to discuss thinking about the opportunities that we would have to look at cooperation and interoperability with that group and the FPDA exercise program. So we'll be discussing how we can incorporate those plans as we work together into the future.
For avoidance of doubt, so there's no ambiguity, we are referring to carrier, not the air-conditioned group, but the carrier strike group.
Indeed.
So we just want to make that clear. Carrier is quite a common air-conditioned. Right. If there are no more comments from my fellow ministers, we'll leave the press to ask the questions. Go ahead.
Indicate that you have a question if you raised hand. We will pass a microphone to you. Yeah, sure. Tom. Josh, go ahead. Yeah.
Hi, can you hear me?
Introduce yourself in the outlet. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, this is Josh from Bloomberg News. Just have a question about Trump. So wondering, like, having a convict in the White House, will it undermine U.S. authority abroad, especially when its partners are trying to shore up its defenses? Thank you.
Who do you want that question directed to?
Ideally, everyone. Is that possible?
Great.
Everyone.
Thank you. Thank you deeply for that question. My answer to your question is going to be very unsurprising. I tend to say as little as I can. I mean, look, these are processes that play out in the United States, and I'm not going to speculate about them or indeed what happens in the US in November. It really is a matter for the American people. I think the point really to make. You know, there is a lot going on in the world, as I said. The rules-based order is being put under increased pressure. And I think when you look at America's contribution to maintaining the rules-based order, it has obviously been exemplary. We greatly appreciate the role that the US plays in respect of that. And I fully anticipate that whatever plays out in the US elections at the end of this year, that will continue to be the case going forward. But it's also clear to us that you know, this is a time when it's really important that friends are working closer and closer together. And what you've got is an example of that right in front of you. I mean, the reason we want to breathe increasing relevance into the FPDA is precisely because of the opportunity of 5 countries which have shared strategic alignment, who have deep history, a familiarity and and excellent trust. These are the relationships that we need to be investing in at the moment to maintain our security. So, I think I am confident that America will continue to play its role no matter what happens at the end of this year. We're very grateful for the role that it plays, and in addition to that, we are very focused as a nation on building our relationships within our region and around the world, and the FPDA is a perfect example of that.
Any other comments?
Just want to say that I completely agree with my Australian colleague. Very sensible answer to a question which frankly is a bit not really what we're talking about today.
I just wanted to make one point. Your premise was that Trump undermines Americans' relationships with partners. That was your assertion, and I just want to put on record that's not, in our case, specifically for Singapore. It was during the Trump presidency that Prime Minister Lee and President Trump renewed our Memorandum of Understanding for U.S. presence of ships and planes in Singapore and maintain the defense relationship. So let me put that on record.
Pei-Ting, Straits Times.
A bit louder.
Oh, this is Pei-Ting from the Straits Times. Okay, so I wanted to understand, what sort of threats are very much alive today that the FPDA really would serve to, guard against. And secondly, because there is now a focus on counter-terrorism, could you also help us understand what sort of events are we responding to? Are there any recent events that triggered the need to look more into counter-terrorism?
Dr. Sri, Khalid?
Very lucky to be there.
I know, it's a privileged position.
Well, I think threats on counter-terrorism, whatever it is, we can see that like what is happening elsewhere, especially in the Middle East, we have a new phenomena in the sense that threats may not come from conventional forces. Although we may not be able to come up with the correct solution, but it does not mean that we should not start somewhere. So maybe through this arrangement, FPDA, we can start to discuss and see how every country try to address these challenges and issues, and maybe we can share through that. And it will take years, of course, like what we have derived and achieved today. So it will also take many years for us at the end of the day to become effective in countering this kind of threats. So, that's my my view on this matter. We need to start somewhere. Yeah.
I think the point I'd want to make in response to that question is that what's really unique about this gathering is the enduring nature of it, the age of it. And so, sure, in 1971, the FPDA was established in response to a series of events. But in 2024, the FPDA is not, its existence is not about the response to a particular threat out there. What it is about the desire 50 years on in a very different world for these countries to work together for the collective security of our region and to support each other's national interests. Now, in that sense, we can all see what is happening in the world in terms of the way in which the rules-based order is being placed under pressure, as I described earlier, events in other parts of the world. And indeed, terrorism remains a feature of the world that we live in today. But I think what you should read out of the decisions that we made is, we are not gathering today to respond to something. We are gathering because this is a commitment of 5 countries to continue to work together, and we'll be gathering decades from now in very different circumstances. What we are seeking to do is to build our capability, our joint capability, and we do that through a much greater degree of complexity in the exercises that we undertake and the coordination that we seek to bring to bear. And you know, one of the 3 R's in our which underpins us is relevance, in seeking to be relevant in the modern world. The sorts of things that we've spoken about today are the ways in which we see our capability to maintain that relevance.
Just one comment. Memories are short, and we forget the real threat of terrorism only recently because of the geopolitical changes. But less than a decade ago, we had operators from Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia who were based in Syria and the Middle East who declared targets in this region. And I want to put on record our thanks to UK, to Australia and New Zealand intelligence that helped us monitor those terrorist elements and in some instances mitigated. Without their help, I'm quite certain that we will have real physical disasters in our region. So it's not as if it's a new collaboration. It wasn't done under FPDA, but when Dr. Sri Muhammad Khalid talks about that, and all of us are on the same page that the threat of terrorism remains real and present.
We take 2 to 3 more questions. Yeah, Aslan, go ahead.
Question is a follow-up from my colleague. I want to know more about, from your discussions, what are the future challenges or future threats that are being anticipated, and is there a possibility that in the future that these arrangement involves other nations as well, in which they may have more expertise in a particular area? So I just want to know a bit more about the future plans, more specific future plans and the future threats that are anticipated.
Sorry, before I direct the question, it's a bit confusing. You were talking about threats and then talking about more members.
Yeah, so, my question is, what are the future threats that are being anticipated based on your discussions? And is there a possibility in the future that other members, other nations join in for exercises in which they may have expertise in dealing with a particular threat?
Richard, future threats, future members.
Just one second. We did not go really into real detail, but on the surface, so that the working group can take this up and present to us in the meeting at the other levels.
You're referring to future members?
No, it depends on capacity building. If there is a need for us to collaborate, I don't think we will hinder or stop to invite only for exercises or sharing of knowledge, that kind of thing. But the FPDA remain the 5 members.
Yeah. So perhaps to start where Khalid finished, I mean, the FPDA is that it will continue to be the 5 members. But the way in which we go about our work is to contribute to a sense of reassurance, another of the R's which underpins what we do, reassurance for the region about what we're about. And so there is a high degree of transparency around the exercises that we do and an invitation for others in the region to observe those. Because we are trying to create reassurance in the exercises that we undertake. But to go to then the first part of the question in relation to threats, I'll probably recast it a little bit in the light of what I've been saying. The maintenance of the rules-based order is what is the shared interest of all the countries that are here. The maintenance of the rules-based order has been placed under pressure, and we seek to be able, through our work, to contribute to the maintenance of the global rules-based order going forward. Ideas around how freedom of navigation, UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, all of those aspects of the global rules-based order are profoundly important for all of us. And in doing that, what we then contribute to is the collective security of this region. And I think what you can see here is a genuine belief that through the existence of the FPDA, through the significance of the five of us sitting before you now, through the exercises that we do, what we are contributing to is a sense of the collective security of the region beyond the five countries which are in front of you now. And that's really what we're seeking to try and achieve.
To answer your question specifically, the expansion of the FPDA was not an item of the agenda. And that's obvious reason, because the FPDA was constructed in a special agreement between five governments, and we don't have the remit to consider expanding it. However, over the past, I think, decade, we have invited observers, Indonesia being one of them, to observe our exercises, including the defense attaches of other ASEAN countries.
Tom Reuters, Keyang Zapa. We take our questions together.
Hi, Tom Westbrook from Reuters. I'd just like to ask, has China expressed any concerns about increased five-power exercises in the region, particularly in the South China Sea?
Not to me. I'm not sure about the rest. Not to Singapore, I mean.
No.
Nope. Oh, have China expressed any?
No, I wouldn't expect them to.
No, and I suppose the only point to make there, so now, not to us, and I think that's the answer across the table. I mean, obviously, this is not about China in the sense that the FPDA has been around for 53 years. What defines the FPDA are the five countries that you've got in front of you, and it really is about our desire to work closely together.
I think the observation I might make is we perhaps introduced an additional R in our conversations today, which was to reminisce, and we reflected on the fact that, you know, if we think about the history of FPDA exercises, that goes back to, you know, in the 90s when we had maybe 200 aircraft kind of flying and much larger scale exercises. So we're going to continue to adapt, to modernise, and to introduce new capabilities. But this is a message of continuity, not a message of expansion.
We heard quite a bit about the commitment to traditional threats and in terms of committing F-35.
Sorry, where are you from?
Sorry, Keyang from Zabao.
Okay.
We heard quite a bit just now on the conventional threats, the response to it, in terms of committing F-35 P-8s and carrier strike groups to exercises. Can we have a bit more on the non-conventional threats in terms of drugs, counter-terrorism, cybersecurity, climate change, thereabouts? What are the member states going to commit in terms of joint exercise in the future?
We have left that to the staff levels in terms of the construct of exercises. Now, there is one particular feature about the FPDA which is unique. It has a standing HQ. HQ IADS, and you can direct questions to him subsequently. It stood up. It plans and coordinates exercises. It's in Butterworth in Malaysia. It's got 40-odd staff. So when the ministers give direction, it means that we would like to plan along those lines. As to specifically what the scenarios are, it's really much staff work based on assessment of threats. But there is one particular element. There will be introduction of non-conventional, will include drones and unmanned aircraft within our exercises.
We take one last question. Kimberly, SNP.
Hi, this is Kimberly. I'm from South China Morning Post. My question is for Minister Collins. So I was just wondering if the New Zealand government is anywhere closer to making its decision on joining the AUKUS Pillar 2, and what are some of the factors it's weighing at the moment?
Well, thank you. So we have expressed a desire to know and learn more about AUKUS Pillar 2 and what opportunities there might be for New Zealand to contribute to that. That is, of course, the non-nuclear, primarily technical side or technology side of AUKUS Pillar 2. We believe that AUKUS is actually a good addition to regional security, but we certainly could not be part of AUKUS Pillar 1. It's not simply within our remit nor our law. But we haven't made any decisions on whether or not we would join that. We've had no actual invitation to join it, but it is something that we are certainly looking at. Those are decisions that are made by our Cabinet in the fullness of time and with full information. We'd always have to look to our national interests. Obviously, it's very difficult to have any security unless you actually, or any financial security without actual security as well. So we'll wait and see. And we remain, as the previous Labor government gone now, we're always interested to learn more and to see if there's something that we can contribute and is in our best interests.
Perhaps I should just say I mean, as people know, AUKUS is it's not an alliance. It's a technology sharing arrangement, even in relation to the conventionally armed nuclear-powered submarines. But Pillar 2 is about Australia, the UK, the US working more closely together on advanced technologies. And at a defence minister's level, amongst our three countries, we have said that in principle, as we walk further down this track, we could imagine AUKUS Pillar 2 being opened up to other countries, and there are a number that have expressed an interest in what we're doing. Our focus right now, though, is on seeing that we are, between the three of us, actually collaborating as much as possible on those advanced technologies. If you like, we're getting runs on the board. And so I think in time we do imagine that AUKUS Pillar 2 opens up. Right now, the focus is on making sure that the three countries are working as closely together as possible in respect of those advanced technologies that we are beginning that work on. And we've noted the inquiries that have been made by New Zealand and by others, and we'll look at that going forward.
All right. We bring the press conference to a close. We invite the ministers to the front of the table.
Thank you.
For a group photo.
Thank you, everyone.
Can I ask members of the media to remain seated? Thank you. Can members of the media remain seated or return to your seats, please?
Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me.
No worries. Let me. I'll just pin you back. What is?
Excuse me.
Yes. Hello. Nice to meet you. How are you? No worries.
That was really good. I really mean that. I don't know what the practicalities are getting you to do that in front of MPs, but it did occur to me that would be a really good presentation. Thanks, sir. Yeah, thanks. It's good to see you again. We met in 2017 in AMAP. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay.
You can download first. room right at the end. My colleague can bring you there if you like. And final reminder, I will send out the G-Drive in the list for those who haven't already gotten it. Please check against issued copies for every day, the news release as well as the joint statement, because there will be changes. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Where? Okay, follow my colleague at the front.
Thank you.
原来好的益生菌真的可以帮助入睡。太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌是国家认证 AB 克菲尔益生菌，含7种有身份证的专利活菌，能产生 GABA、色氨酸等助眠因子，难怪吃了更快入睡，也睡得更好。太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌也是台湾市场上唯一添加克菲尔乳杆菌 M1 的产品，这是由台湾知名的大学季转，对季节敏感、调整体质的朋友真的是一大福音。还有这支还添加被称为超级食物的羽衣甘蓝萃取物，不少研究都指出，十字花科蔬菜有助抗炎及防癌。像是羽衣甘蓝含有高量的叶黄素、贝塔胡萝卜素、维生素 K、维生素 C、叶酸等丰富营养素。太阳鲜全效克菲尔益生菌专利制成，无塑化剂、无重金属、无人工添加物、无410项农药、无香料调味剂、无防腐剂、无色素，7大保证、7大认证，觉得好安心。每日克菲尔，时刻美好 ，Good feel，feel good，快点购下单！太阳鲜全效克菲尔益生菌。